Star Wars 7x7 episode 2679. So Boba Fett just walks in, shoots Bib Fortuna, and suddenly he takes control of what? Exactly. That's kind of an open question, and so we're going to dig into that a little bit today. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So to really understand what it is that Boba Fett exactly did at the end of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, we have to take a little bit of a look at history, and don't worry, I'm not going to go crazy into this because, hey, it's a 7-ish minute podcast, and so we're not going to go too deeply into the long history of the Hutt clans or anything like that. I'm just going to hit some high notes because it's kind of important to understand at least a couple of things for us to know what exactly Boba Fett is going to be dealing with in the Book of Boba Fett. As a foundational element, I think the thing that's probably most important to know is that the Hutt Clan, which is the criminal organization that we're talking about, was made up of Hutt families, and they of course had warring factions and were always jostling for power and that sort of thing. But there was a Grand Hutt Council that ruled their criminal activities overall. And we haven't talked about War of the Bounty Hunters yet on the podcast, but I think we're going to have to before we get to the Book of Boba Fett eventually, because there's a lot of stuff going on that probably bears on the Book of Boba Fett in some way. So here, with the full spoiler alert warning, is the thing I think we need to know about right now, which is that somewhere in War of the Bounty Hunters, Darth Vader killed almost everyone on the Grand Hutt Council. The only remaining member of that Grand Hutt Council is Jabba the Hutt, and by default, basically, he took over leadership of the Hutt Clan. And that happens between 3 and 4 ABY, which means it happens in between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Then, of course, Return of the Jedi happens, and Leia kills Jabba. Woohoo! Then we have to go back into novels, particularly the Aftermath novels by Chuck Wendig and also Bloodline by Claudia Gray. And what we find out from those two is that Hutt Clan members tried to find out if there was any kind of will or anything like that after Jabba's demise, and they were trying to figure out who was going to take over operations of the Hutt Clan. But as far as we know, no Hutt stepped up necessarily and took over the Hutt Clan, and there was no establishment or re-establishment of a Grand Hutt Council as far as we know, and that would lead us as far as 5 ABY. But probably fair to say that, in line with other canon sources, their power is waning. As to where it's at 10 ABY and how fast it's been waning, well, 5 years is a long time for a power vacuum, to be sure. And canon history has established that the Hutt's power faded significantly over time, to the point where by the time we get to the sequel era, they're basically a non-factor as far as criminal organizations in the galaxy. So it's an open question as to what their status is in 10 ABY, which is where the Book of Boba Fett is going to be taking place. As for Bib Fortuna, he's not running anything, right? He is only there serving somebody else's interests, and most likely it's the Hutt Clan, or what remains of it at this point. And so the act of Boba Fett shooting Bib Fortuna and taking Bib Fortuna's place in Jabba's palace, well, that would seem to put Boba Fett at odds with whatever remains of the Hutt Clan. And perhaps this is the inciting incident that leads to the demise of Hutt influence in the galaxy. Meanwhile, we do know that other criminal organizations are operating on Tatooine in the aftermath of Jabba's death, including the Red Key Raiders. And funnily enough, the Red Key Raiders are actually part of Cobb Vanth's origin story. It was the Red Key Raiders that he fought off with the help of the Boba Fett Mandalorian armor to take care of his own little town. And that, in a nutshell, is where things stand with the Hutts and what's likely the case with Bib Fortuna and what Boba Fett has set himself up for as a result of killing Bib Fortuna at the end of Mandalorian Season 2. And that is going to do it for today's episode of the show. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.